Yeah,
It is.
if you teach 1,000 people, one person at a time, how to do the squats,
Yeah,
you're going to be friggin' great at teaching the squat. But if
totally.
you, which is not the same as running 1,000 classes. I think if you teach 1,000 classes, you don't probably get as good as if you taught 1,000 one-on-ones.
Welcome to Behind the Knowledge, a best hour podcast where we dive deep into the lives and stories of inspiring coaches from all walks of life. The two hosts of this show are me, Pat Barber, and my good friend and fellow coach, Todd Occhiuto. Each week, we'll sit down with the most amazing coaches we can find, uncovering their unique paths, the challenges they've faced, and passions that continue to drive them. Whether you're a seasoned coach, an aspiring one, or simply somebody who likes listening to stories of how people achieve the success that they have, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the powerful stories and insights from the world of coaching. This is Behind the Knowledge. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Knowledge, where we talk to coaches, pick their brain, get as much info as we can from the years and years of wisdom that they have coaching. I have an awesome show today. We've got one of our level 1 staff members, Gene Williams, on with us. Gene is actually on my mentor team, so technically I'm his mentor, but he's taught me far more than I've ever taught him on being capable at what he does. Gene started CrossFit, found it in 2008. We'll talk about your history before that because I don't know exactly what it is. You launched your gym, CrossFit Foundry, in summer of 2009, so you only waited 1 year before you're like, you know what, let's hop into a business. And you've been doing that ever since. You run an amazing gym. You're an amazing coach. You got a CrossFit level 3. You're a seminar staff trainer. When did you get on seminar staff? What
It's
year
been
was that?
about 6 years now.
Okay,
So
6 years.
2018, I think.
Okay, and which is blows my mind because your capacity is unbelievable relative to a lot of the people I've ever worked with. So you've got your CrossFit Endurance, CrossFit Kids, CrossFit Gymnastics, Movement Mobility, CrossFit Kettlebell, CrossFit Olympic Lifting Trainers Course, Olympic Lifting Trainers Course with Catalyst Athletics, and I'm sure you've expanded your knowledge in many different areas that is unfathomable. So we're going to start things off with one win that you've had recently because I'm curious. What's one win in your life that you've got going on?
Uh, Coaching wise, I think I feel like the energy in my gym is really high right now, and the buy-in from my athletes is high, and the buzz in the gym, the momentum feels like it's really going in the right direction, and that's a cyclical thing. Like the energy is higher, and then I get more into it, and then because I'm more into it, they get more into it, and people are showing up and working hard, and like I feel like I'm making an impact. So that gives me reason to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning when I feel like I don't really want to do that. But when I know that there's people there that are seeing changes and positive impact in their lives, then that gets me out of bed and gets me going for sure.
Hell yeah! Why do you think the that's happening right now?
I think it kind of goes back to what um, Glassman said early on was like show up every day and see how you can make it better. See, do the right thing for the right people, for the right reasons. Like the more I invest in some of those, not the knowledge of what the points of performance are in the squat, but talking to people and relating to people and figuring out why they're there and how I can help them, and some of that soft people skills, more service oriented side of the coaching relationship. That stuff I think is paying off in some pretty major ways. So I can definitely tend to be a very technical, coach, and I want good movement, and I want people to hit the stimulus and things like that. But if I can, or when I back that up with some of that relationship stuff, it definitely improves things for sure.
Interesting. So you're 16 years deep at your affiliate. When did you start working on? When did you recognize that you were on the other side of things? Like you're more detail oriented, then all of a sudden you're like, people. When was that revelation for you, and how did
Gosh,
it happen?
I want to say that I wish it was a lot sooner than it was. Um, as you mentioned, all those courses I went to and all this like information I gained and knowledge about the technical side, but I think it probably is in relationship to being on the seminar team and how heavy we are in that environment of meeting people and trying to make sure they have a really excellent experience and give them the value for their time and money that they've invested in showing up, and then bringing that stuff to my own gym. And I think that that's a major part of it. So, probably within the last 5 or 6 years is probably when that's become more of a focus for me versus like, hey, this is what CrossFit is, and we're gonna do it this
Do
way.
CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Todd, I'm actually curious, can you relate to that at all?
Oh, I've been there with that. Yeah, for sure. It's like you get into it and you start coaching. I'm like, I need everybody to move perfectly. That's the only thing I care about. I'm, probably more condescending in my comments of like, you know, letting them know when they're not moving perfectly, and less empathetic, I would say. Um, it's hard to have some perspective in that stuff early on. At least it was for me coming where I came from, right? So yeah, I feel you there for sure. It's like less worried about the X's and O's and just worry about making people feel good and feel safe and feel comfortable and getting to know them a little bit better. And it makes it a lot easier to do that when you know the X's and O's really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to get those across and get people into the right position. It's like you're not wasting as many of your mental resources on trying to coach because you know this stuff so well and you do so well with it. So now it's like I've freed up some space to do a better job on connecting with people. So I feel you there.
And I
I
think
can remember. Oh, sorry, Pat.
Go ahead.
I can remember being like mad at people who had a difficult time squatting and being like, they're just not good at this CrossFit thing, and like I still want them in my gym, but just feeling so frustrated. And, nowadays I can be teaching someone to clean and they're missing hip extension, their feet land in the weirdest place and their knees are caving in. But I asked them to like keep the bar close and turn it over, and they did that. And I'm like clapping, like, yeah, that was really great, instead of being like, oh, but this, and this, and this, we're not right. And like they leave feeling, sad and defeated, and, being able to celebrate the little improvements for people and genuinely feel excited about it. And because recognizing that it's a process that many different people take different times to accomplish.
Yeah, and it's an interesting subject too, because I think like in order to truly make impact on people, because when we talk about coaching, definition of coaching is creating change. It's like creating change in the people who are in front of you. So in essence, we need to be able to do the exercise. Like that's the core of our job. But it's like if that X's and O's are happening at the expense of the experience, then you're like, okay, damn it. I kind of am I missing the forest for the trees here? Like they need to have a good experience so they'll continue to want to stay. But can I like couple the two? I think that's an interesting thing to look at, because you two both came from the world of like, I'm gonna get you guys need to do this stuff. Like you need to do this stuff and you need to do it like this. And then you've built the experience over time of realizing that like and I think it's almost great that you did that, because then you can really prioritize some big safety pieces and be like, these always get hit, but I know what I can ignore. Whereas like I would say my trek along the way, I hurt people physiologically because I would not know what to do. I'm like, let's just have a freaking good time, like I wasn't super as into like making people move as well in my initial years, but I was like, this experience is going to be awesome. Whereas I think maybe you would have pushed people away with how you treated them, and I would have pushed people away with the fact that they might have gotten hurt because I didn't know what I was doing. And it's like this weird like balance of molding those two together over time. Fun thing to think about.
Yeah, legit.
Todd, give me a
Yeah, and I think it's like easier said than done too, right? Because I'm sure you guys have experienced gyms and classes that have one or the other, and it's not going to last if it is only one way, right? If it's only fun, but nobody ever learns how to do anything or do anything correctly, and they always get hurt. And they're not going to last if Gene and I just tell them how bad they suck every time that they show up, and tell them how bad they are, and it's never any fun. So realizing that there is a balance and there is a mix, and like you said, when to push, when not to. And I think ultimately it's like, if somebody has a good time and they feel positive and they feel like they're making progress because of how we made them feel, and they show up tomorrow, it's going to buy me time to teach them how to get the feet where they need to be in that landing position or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, I want to train people for like years and years, not like weeks and months, you know?
That's a good point. Toddy, what's a win you've had recently?
I've got a art project that I'm going to do this weekend. So I've got one piece in my gym that's kind of in the entryway, and we're building a new desk. And so I get a chance to paint the new desk to match the other piece that I've got in the space. And then it's also got my mind thinking about other pieces that I want to put in the gym. So
hell yeah.
That should be fun and exciting.
I have a project for you. Can you make your background not look like a giant white moratorium?
You'll get that.
Let's make that thing look really cool instead of the garbage that it currently is. Gene's got hang some guitars and you'll be better off.
Yeah, you don't have to play them, just hang them.
Yeah.
Just hang them and make it look like that's the case. That's it, right?
Yeah. For me, one of my win like this week, this Sunday, I've got a band practice. It's like a reunion, and I was just telling you guys this offline, but I'm pretty stoked to go sing my voice out all Sunday. I wasn't going to get to go because I had a seminar, but the seminar got canceled due to low enrollment. So guess what? Boom, I'm going. So that's a win.
What's the genre? I got to imagine it's some sort of rock. Is it like, what is it?
I can see him doing like Rage Against the Machine covers, just screaming into the mic.
Yeah, that and Peruvian pan flute music. So it's like the kind of like the pan flute style. No, it's we actually did "Killing in the Name of" as a cover because it's such a great song. I played that on the Stanford campus, just like out in the atrium where we set up all our speakers, and like had people all come and sing "Killing in the Name of," some Red Hot Chili Peppers, some Rise Against, and then our own songs as well. So it's just fun. Like awesome. I'm not good. I'm easily like the weakest person in this whole band. They're all like actual musicians who've gone on to do other bands and do great, and I'm just some tard who's so bad at singing. But I love fun fact, I sung at the 2009 NorCal Regional, or maybe it was 2010.
What did you sing there?
We had a band it was at Aromas, and my band came and we played after the event.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Did you compete?
No, because I had qualified already. So
because you were top 5 the year before, is that what it was?
Yeah.
So that had to have been 2009, right?
2009. It would have been 2009. Yeah. So I didn't have to compete at that regional. So we got our sectional, whatever it was, and so we played at the ranch, and like Dave and Adrian hung around, and like a few others, and Austin Begebing, but then everyone else went home. So like nobody stayed other than like my family and like Adrian and Dave and stuff. So it was the tiniest, funnest little show at the Aromas Ranch. But I'm taking it as a win.
Well, I hope you get some footage of that. We can see it.
Bro, I don't think there is. I think it's only in people's memories.
This weekend.
Oh, this weekend, potentially. Yeah, that might be fun. I might have to put it in some crazy post-production for you guys to get any value from it, but we'll see. So, any struggles that come up to mind right now that you're going through?
For me, I think I feel like I need to get more of my staff up to a higher level so I can give them hand them more roles and not feel as buried at times, and feel a little bit more comfortable when I have to leave for seminars or if I want to take a day off, I've got a lot of longevity in my staff, and but I'm super picky and I want a really high level of experience. So we started doing some more. We did a coach development hour this week, and I'm going to probably do that every 2 weeks to bring some of the drills that we've done at level 2 seminars and things like that, and get people, the coaching staff, more up to speed so I can more comfortably hand off some things to them. And I've had like 3 private training clients going right now that are meeting 2 to 3 times a week. And I do most of the foundations for new people coming in, and I cover classes. So, it's not unusual right now for me to do like 4 or 5 hours in a row, which is just a heavy lift, and makes me feel bitter by the end of the like the fifth hour. It's kind of like, oh man, I'm kind of, I need to check out a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Okay. And what do you think your biggest hurdle is in letting go of those reins a bit? Or like is it internal, or is it there's actual like an inability you genuinely see in some of the people?
It's probably more internal, and me having a standard that I want them to be here, and they're probably here, and I want to close that gap. I think they're very capable, and uh, of doing the teaching and seeing, and they're getting a lot better at correcting. So we're working on that, the seeing and correcting portion, um, and then a little bit of like, I want to like watch them do more, observe them do more of the one-on-one coaching, foundation style that we do for bringing people into the gym. I want to observe that a little bit more and get them a chance to do that and then see it, and then I'll feel more comfortable. What we've done up till now, for the most, well, after they get to a certain point and they start teaching them on their own, I kind of just, I'm not there if they're doing it, so I'm assuming that it's going okay, but I haven't had a chance to actually watch. So I'm hoping that this summer that they can take more of those on. I can be just kind of observing, and then just know that they're at the level that I want them to be, or like a reasonable level.
Are you a CrossFit coach who's feeling stuck in their development? You're not alone. Many coaches lack good guidance when it comes to how to develop as a coach. They either don't have strong examples they find themselves around, they may lack support from their gym owner, and they just feel unprepared going into their next credential. That's why we made the Knowledge Pro, to fill that gap. It's a mentorship program built for coaches like you. It uses the Knowledge Daily, our comprehensive video library, as well as extra content that we put directly into the Knowledge Pro on our live weekly calls twice a week to mentor you and get you to the next level of development. We've got progressions, we've got scales, we've got one-off tips and tricks, we've got full coached classes by level 4 coaches so you can see an example of what it means to do this job well. All of that will also be walked through each week on those live calls, so that you have a soundboard to bounce off of and a group of coaches looking to be better to help support you in your endeavors. Coaching isn't just knowing what to do, it's also knowing how to do it. And that takes two things. One, an example, and two, practice. Practice is on your end, you got to go out there and do it. We can help provide that example and the support with the Knowledge Pro. If you want to know more, click the link below and give the Knowledge Pro a shot. I look forward to seeing you on one of the next calls.
I'd be curious to know, what kind of stuff do you do, like coach development? Obviously, when you're on the floor a lot, as much as it sounds like you are, and then when you're off the floor, that probably means you need to be away from the gym and you're just kind of letting people do their thing. Do you have the opportunity? Do you guys do coach development? How frequently? What does that look like?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Like, there's definitely times where it's like I'm done and I need to leave. But
Yeah.
I do try to work out with a class most times if I can during the day. So if I take a class and another coach is coaching, I might give them two or three things after I take the class. I'm not sitting there with a pen and a paper if I'm working out, but I'll try to let them know, hey, that section that you taught was really good. I noticed that when you were working with so and so, maybe you could have tried this. I give them little bits of feedback, and they also get often to emulate. They might be in one of my classes before they coach a class. So I'm coaching the 8 o'clock. They are in the 8 o'clock. One of the coaches is there, and then they turn around, and if they teach the 9, they've kind of seen the flow, and they can kind of copy and paste in a way. And I feel like that's been really, really effective, because I feel like my crew is crushing it on the tell, show, do, check, and the ability to present the information and use a progression and pace the warm up in a way that makes sense and fits into a class. I think they're really great at that stuff. And so there's that. And then when we met this earlier this week, we just did some we practiced teaching or seeing and correcting a movement. So, I had one of my coaches, we're doing overhead squats, and I walked around with them and, what are you seeing? Where are you looking? giving them cues and things like that. So just simple little drills, and then talking about maybe other places to look, or the why behind the weight is in the toes, versus just telling them to get back on their heels. Why are they there? And trying to see that stuff.
I think, like, to your point, having a good example to follow and mimic is some of the best forms of coach development that I've experienced, and I've seen coaches experience as well. In fact, it came up at the seminar I worked last weekend with the trainers when we were having coffee or we were having dinner and talking through how do you make a good coach and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, most coaches that I know that have gone on to be, above average and high level coaches and seminar staff typically have had a really high level coach to look at, to emulate, and to learn from. And, so having you as the person to watch and follow, I just think is going to allow them to start their journey so much farther ahead than somebody that's just gone and got to level 1, or is unfortunately at a gym where they don't have somebody that has the amount of knowledge and the experience that you have. And it's like, most people are going to start this role and they're just going to mimic what they've experienced. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh man, I want to be a CrossFit coach. CrossFit changed my life. I see that my coach writes the workout on the board, turns the music up really loud, starts the clock. I want to do that. And it's like, that's badass. Whereas the luck that they have to be able to see you and, like you said, follow the tell, show, do, check process and run effective warm-ups and that kind of stuff. And in my opinion, it's like your coaching creates a buffer with all of your members for other coaches. It's like you've educated your clients more than likely so darn well that by the time your coaches come in, they already know how to move well enough and probably have a good idea of how to scale and what loads they should be using depending on the workout, to where it's like, sweet, your coaches are ahead of the game because they don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting because of the amount that you do. So really, really cool to hear that.
Thanks.
If I had to ask you, what's the worst case scenario if you gave them the reins too early, what would you say? So say right, because right now you're holding on, you need to let go. What's the worst case scenario if you're like, I give you freedom?
The client would come out of the squats foundation with not as high of a quality movement as they would leave if I did it. I mean, literally, it's like no big deal. You know what I mean? It's just like, it would just be they would be a little less effective than I can be.
Okay. Are you worried that person wouldn't stay at the gym?
No. Dude, and it's not that I don't let them do any. I just tend to do it. I in part, I like to do it because I like getting, taking someone from, I've never done CrossFit and showing them like how great it can be. So there's a part that likes it. And there's really nothing's holding me back. And I do have them do some, but they also like, one of my issues, or not the issues, but the scenario is, three of my coaches are like stay-at-home moms, and they have kids to take to and from school and practice and so on. So they have some limited availability. And so a lot of times when somebody wants to do a foundation, it's during a time where they can't help. And so I kind of have to do that because of the time constraints. But for sure, they've all done them. And if I'm letting them coach a class, I'm comfortable with them coaching in one person, But I want to see, I'm in a place where I want them to develop more. And if they get to do more one-on-ones, they'll be more effective in classes as well. And so I want to observe that and bring that up, to a higher level. It's not at an unacceptable level by any means. They're great.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to you doing less of those and them doing more of them.
All right.
You have time to play drums,
Dude, I'm with you where it's like, I want my hands on the new people, right? It's like the amount of change that I can make, the experience I want them to provide them with, to get a feel for what our gym's going to be like. It's so different. Do you guys remember the time? I remember there was a time in CrossFit where a gym owner would be coaching all the classes. They'd be like, I need some more capacity. So I'm going to get somebody to get their level 1. And the thing that they would give would be the intros or the fundamentals or the on-ramps. And it always blew my mind, where I'm like, you've got the least experienced trainer you've got making the first impression with this new potential client. holy cow.
Yeah.
Like that always blew my
Yeah.
mind that was the thing they wanted to hand off, as opposed to like all these classes that I've run so many times, my members know how to do them themselves. And your time is better spent with the intro. So
But
anyways, that just
it's such a
reminded me of like,
it's a catch 22 though, because like that one-on-one or one-on-4 of brand new people interaction is such an opportunity to become great as a
to be,
coach. So like
yes,
when you're like new and you're trying to learn how to do it and you get a new type of doofus every time, you're like, how do
yes,
I refine this information to the basics where I can say relatively the same thing all the time and have the same result? And it's like across a spectrum. So it's such a catch 22 of like fantastic like development opportunity for new coaches, but it's also the most important touch that should happen is like they should
yeah,
walk out of those classes being like, I have a sense of how things go. So it's like I get it. Like and they're
oh, yeah.
exhausting because of the repetition, but they're also great because of the repetition. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's so great for new coaches to do. I such a funny place.
Yeah,
It is.
if you teach 1,000 people, one person at a time, how to do the squats,
Yeah,
you're going to be friggin' great at teaching the squat. But if
totally.
you, which is not the same as running 1,000 classes. I think if you teach 1,000 classes, you don't probably get as good as if you taught 1,000 one-on-ones. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Because you can dig in so much more, and you have time to figure it out, and scratch your head, and you're dealing with, like you said, all the different things that people have. It's great.
I, I'd be curious to know, like, is your on, well, I'm assuming that your on ramp or your fundamentals or your intros have evolved throughout the years, but for the most part, have you taught the 9 foundational movements and done so with the PVC pipe to people,
Yeah,
like as they come in and get started?
we like when I started in my garage, people just come to the gym, and I had 2 or 3 people, so it wasn't a big deal. So we just you would just start. But once we got bigger, we started doing initially 4 sessions. So we would teach the squats in one, the presses in another, deadlift, snatch, and clean in the third one, and then we would do the fourth one. We do like, hey, here's a burpee, here's a box jump, here's a rower, here's how to do a pull up, and blah blah blah. We ended up eliminating that fourth one after a period of time because it was a time suck, and most of those things we could show you how to do a wall ball in 2 minutes. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
eliminated that. I don't teach the sumo deadlift high pull as part of my on ramp because we don't use it as much as we use the snatch. So we
Blasphemy.
teach deadlift. I know.
No, I'm just
I'm going to get back. Deadlift, snatch, and clean, and I teach those we go over with a PVC pipe first, and then we go a barbell. Most times I don't load it more than 35 pounds on any of those lifts for people. It's just not necessary most times. And, you spend a good 15, 20 minutes working on each one. And I introduce squat therapy to people in the beginning, and just try to lay down the idea of like, here's how important the mechanics are. And CrossFit can be awesome, and we can go fast and throw shit around and have a good time. But it has to start with the fundamentals.
So I'd be curious to know how that impacted your internship, or what's now the candidate program, but I'm sure at the time when you did it, it was still the internship, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel going into groups with that many reps of intros? Which were they roughly the same as your circles were ran?
Yeah, I think it's certainly it's related, but certainly a different environment when you put 10 people in a circle, and you've got Lisa Ray staring at you with a piece of paper.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I remember it being just the most awful, nerve-wracking experience ever. And But I felt like when I was doing it, I kind of knew enough of what I was doing. I wasn't a completely foreign environment, but still super challenging to be able to be efficient at seeing that many people, and to make the change. And I think the some of the progressions I didn't have as polished as I do now.
Right.
I think like most people, you go to level 1, you see the progression, you hear about it, and then you kind of forget how to use it, or you don't know how useful it is. And so, you're looking at people doing push presses, just, the whole thing, and not thinking about breaking it down. And so I think when I started the internship process, it was like, oh, here's these 4 steps I have to use. And then it took a while to figure out what is each step actually for. There's
Yeah.
a depth of knowledge that increased over time. But yeah, I mean, what a challenging experience doing that was. I could just remember not sleeping and just feeling sick to my stomach.
Sounds about right. Did you have you guys ever run into people who've never coached one-on-one and who've just it was something that I found fascinating about like 4 years into coaching level twos, where I'd meet somebody who would do the one-on-one breakout, and I'd be like, oh, you're struggling. It was like generally the people who like really struggled with that one-on-one, looking for the finer details, and then also had a really hard time in hitting anything longer than a 5-second timeline. They would just do the thing and be like, well, I'm done. They look pretty good. And I'm like, what the hell? But then when you got into like the small group, all of a sudden they were really capable. And like there was this disconnect in my head. I'm like, how can you be so bad at one-on-one, but so capable at navigating a small group? And it was because, and I made the connection a couple seminars after that, was like, we've got people who've never coached one-on-ones because they go to a gym, and their gym goes, hey, go take a level 1 and you're going to coach the morning classes. And then it's like they go to their level 1 and then they start coaching group classes. They've never done one-on-ones. And so they have no way of dealing with one person and trying to truly refine that single movement. Have you guys ever seen that, your level 2s, those types of people?
I mean, I've seen those people, but they're typically not terribly great the next day in the groups either. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I try to, whenever I'm teaching a level 2, it's like I try to level set on like what's reality, what do they actually do in their affiliates, what could be effective. And to be perfectly honest, I do think it could be effective to walk up and be like, I'm coaching, if I am coaching a one-on-one environment, and I go, hey, here's the medicine ball clean. All right, Gene, go ahead and do it. I show you 1 rep and then I have you do it. Like, I think coaches in a one-on-one environment could do that and then make the corrections needed if they have the knowledge base to see and make the corrections, right? So it's hard to like wrap my head around giving feedback that says that's completely ineffective if they were able to see and correct. Now, I think to your point, Pat, like you're saying that somebody does that and then they're like, yep, that's a med ball clean, and they didn't make a single correction. And you're like, yeah, well, clearly that's not very effective and that's not very good. But I do like, CrossFit gyms are group classes.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're at, they're big group classes. And so very rarely do people have a one-on-one experience outside of, I'm in a big class of 20 people and I've got one brand new person. So I'm going to give that one person all my attention and just let everybody else do whatever the heck they want to. Right. I think there's some one-on-ones in that environment too. So
yeah,
interesting.
Well, I've seen what you're talking about, people who struggle in both. But that what really caught me off guard was somebody who struggled with the one-on-one and then did well in the group. And that's what really separated it out for me, where I was like, you managed flow well, you called timing well, you threw out individual cues really well, because they never lingered. It was like bang, and then move to the next person, bang, then move to the next person. Timing all worked, but they just didn't have the interpersonal with the one-on-one. And it was like, oh, you've just never done this. And it was because that's not where we came up. Like, all of us mainly coached one-on-ones first. Like, you in your garage, Gene, you was like, I got like 2 people come in and you're like, it's my wife first or whatever it is. And
it was my dad. Yeah,
yeah,
my dad
exactly.
was my first client. Yeah.
So you learn how to talk to someone. You learn how to like bullshit. You learn how to flush out something that would take one person 30 seconds. Just like you said, hey, show me a med ball clean. That looks pretty good. Here's a couple of little adjustments. Move on. And then you learn how to adapt that to a group. But they're having to reverse engineer that of like, I've never had the time to spend one-on-one with someone. So I'm just peppering cues. And it was an interesting thought for me when I saw it. Tell me your coaching story. Like, where did you first, like, what was the first thing you ever coached? And like, what was leading up to that? And then like, what were the steps along the way to get you where you're at?
I found CrossFit because I read an article in like Men's Health and Fitness in like 2008 or something. And then I read that article and I threw it on the back of my toilet and I didn't do anything with it for like 6 or 8 months. And then I was like, oh, I think I'm going to work out. And so where's that article? And the only affiliate in my area was in a garage, literally a block from my house at the time. So I got my car and I drove there and did an intro workout. and that thing smoked me. Like whatever 15-minute of like medicine ball slams and burpees and jumping pull-ups, whatever it was, just like changed my whole outlook on life. I laid on the floor for 45 minutes and then drove home and laid on the floor for 30 minutes more, and just I just knew right away that that was like the hardest thing I'd ever done, and if I do that regularly, I'll get fit. That connection was just really strong, but I didn't actually have the money to afford to pay her to go through her on ramp and join her gym. So I started following CrossFit.com at like a Gold's Gym. And at the time, the videos of like Sage Bergner doing snatches were like that big, you know? And I would
Still not
write
a big
notes
potato.
back in the day. Back in my day, we didn't have smartphones. And I would write notes on a post-it note, and I would go to Gold's Gym and like learn how to overhead squat with metal plates and drop the bar on accident. You know, I was one of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the gal that was opening her gym, or had her garage gym, she wanted to open up a commercial space. So um, I decided on my own to go to the level one. So I started in December and went to my level one in March. So like 3 months later, and had just an amazing experience in San Diego with like 65 other people. You know, it was just a big seminar, and everybody was there. And um,
Who were your trainers
we
for your level one?
Andy Stumpf and Josh Everett was there, and I think Dave rolled through at one point. Um, Medina, Karen
Yeah.
Medina,
The yeah
long brown hair. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, Greg Amundsen was there. Um,
Was,
I know.
was Tony there?
I don't remember Tony being there. I think Rory McKernan might have been there as like an intern, maybe, or something. I mean, there was like 6 people, and it was
Yeah.
a long time ago. I feel like I should remember everybody, um, but just a great experience. And so I was going to coach after I did that. Um, I was going to maybe coach for this other gal, but we had some like disagreements on things, and so in kind of on a whim, I uh, charged $7,000 worth of stuff on Rogue, and had a garage sale and cleaned out my garage. And I started an affiliate My Garage like in July. So it went from like December to July, uh, between like finding CrossFit and starting a CrossFit gym in my garage.
That's right.
And like I said, my first client was my dad, and so I was working out, and I would train him, and then he brought a buddy, and then after a little while, I had like 5 or 6 people in my garage, and I was making mistakes on a very small scale, and learning in that small environment. I had my garage gym for like a year and a half before we moved into a commercial space and got like 1,500 square feet. And at the end of that year, I had about 60 people. So there was a lot of people that wanted to train with me but didn't want to work out in a garage. And having a legitimate commercial space that really helped my business for sure. And I kind of took a risk. I like liquidated my meager retirement that I had and bought some more rowers and some more rig and a few more medicine balls, and then by the end of that first year, we needed more than 1,500 square foot, and so we moved a couple doors down, and that's where we've been since, in like about 4,500 square feet.
Hell yeah.
And
Oh, nice.
yeah, and over the going from the garage to the commercial space, my wife went and got her level one, and then she was able to coach classes during the day when I was at my day job, trying to actually make some money as we grew the gym. And we're kind of taking this risk off. Like, we couldn't have launched the gym if she hadn't done that. And she ran the gym with me for many years, and now she's retired and she's going to school to be a dental hygienist. So
Hell
I
yeah.
got,
Nice.
yeah.
Hell yeah. And then what was the onus for jumping on staff? By the way, that name was Rachel Medina.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Wait. Before you answer, she was when I was teaching, because I remember when she came on staff, super bubbly, super nice.
Yeah.
I watched her not know the answer to questions and throw out more baloney than I have ever seen somebody, like, just deadpan confidence.
Oh, boom.
Just like, hey, what's the reason we keep the bar tight in a deadlift? Well, when the bar drifts away from you, there's ferries that get in between, and those ferries can actually throw out your low back. So we want to make sure we avoid the ferries, and that'll help us get in there. But it was like that. Like, she wouldn't know the answer. It would just like make it up, but like said it like there was no tomorrow. And then people in
Fake
the
it till
audience,
you
oh,
make it.
shoot, the fairies,
Yeah.
And
yeah,
and at that time, nobody knew any different. So they're like, oh, fairies.
absolutely
All right,
fairies,
got it.
right?
Roger that.
And it was
Yeah.
mind blowing to me because I'd be sitting there as the demo guy going, "Wait, did she just? Okay, all right, well, all right."
Is that a fairy? Let me look down
Yeah.
there, see if there's a fairy there.
So, Gene, so keep going. Seminar
Sorry,
staff.
what was the impetus to get on staff? I I had my gym for actually applied as an intern in 2015 maybe, and I did 4 internships and didn't quite cut the mustard at that time. And then I applied again when hiring came back on and was able to make it. But I saw it as definitely a challenge to try to rise to. In the community, we kind of put up the seminar staff as the guys girls who know the most, who are the most effective, and I felt I was pretty good in my gym, and I was having a positive impact, and I saw it as like the Mount Everest of coaching was can you do that, and even though I didn't make it the first time, the efforts that I put in to try to get there, and go into the level, or it was the coaches prep course at that time, and then doing the internship process and practicing and seeing and correcting and getting better at managing a group and things like that. And like that brought better quality of experience to my gym. And then when I didn't make it, then it was like a serious thorn in my side. It was like, man, I thought I was there, and they're telling me I'm not, and I really want to get there and be able to prove that I can do it. And so I just had to slide into Dave's DMs the next time I saw a black shirt on his Instagram. I was like, hey, I want another try at this. And second time I was able to get on. So
What was the difference from the first time to the second time? What made you better that second time?
I think more time under tension, knowing more and being able to be more effective. I think when I applied the first time, like I said, the idea of like, here's a progression, and I knew the progression on day one when they're like, what's the progression for the push press? And I could tell you, if you would have dug in further that first day and said, what does the dip and hold? Why do we do that? I would have been like, maybe not as sure about, we're going to actually look for
Because
vertical
it says it in
torso.
the progression. It says it right
Yeah,
here. That's why.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, having more time, being able to use that stuff effectively, and take what I learned during that first trip through the process and take it back to the gym and just put that into practice over a couple of more years. And then, going to get the L3 before being able to apply again and stuff like that. Like, I just think like more knowledge and more experience, I just got better.
What made you continue to pursue it instead of just quitting like a bunch of people quit? Like a bunch of people, like they'll get that feedback and they'll be like, "Nah, you're not good enough," and they'll be like, "Bleh." Like
Yeah.
what in your life was like, like that's uncomfortable and painful, but I'm gonna pursue this again." And maybe it's similar to why you did your first CrossFit workout and were like, "That was horrible. I'm gonna do this again." Like what
Yeah.
what made you do that differently if you had to examine that?
I think it's a difference in belief of what they were telling me versus what I believed about myself. Maybe like I believed I could uh, do the job well, and I think I've proven that. Now that I have the job, and I've delivered a professional experience and been able to perform well at the job. I believed that I could do it, and they were saying I wasn't quite ready yet, and so I was just insistent that I was going to be able to get it and be able to do it, so if it took a little bit more work or more practice, it was a hard hit when I got told no, it made me pretty sad. um, but but after I picked myself up, it's like, okay, well then if you can't do it now, it's like if you try for a muscle up and you don't get one, you don't just give up. You go, okay, well, what kind of homework do I need? Do I need more pulling strength? Do I need more transition work? You have to keep at it. And if you want to accomplish things that are difficult, and that applies for things outside of your life. It applies for things inside the gym. Anything worth doing is worth doing well, and anything worth doing is probably difficult to achieve. And, and like, that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about CrossFit is it shows you how to do that stuff in other areas. You do this in the gym, you figure out how to get your muscle up. And then when you're faced with some other challenge outside of the gym, you can apply that same mindset and resilience and hard work and determination. You can do that to other things in your life,
Yeah.
That's, obviously that's a cool story of like resilience and continuing to push. And especially for somebody that had as much experience coaching as you did, somebody who was as confident in their coaching skills as you did, to still be willing and able to onboard that feedback, go and work on it and push forward and actually, make the team. I'm curious to know, like, you called being on seminar staff like the Everest of CrossFit coaching. It's like you made it. You're on top of Everest. What is like, one, what do you do to continue to develop? And number two, what continues to keep you motivated to keep developing? It's like one of those deals where you got your muscle up. Now what?
I think in relationship to the seminar staff specifically, like, I want the respect and admiration of the other people on the team that I admire and respect. And I want them to see me as someone who is a professional they're excited to work with, that they know, like, when they see my name on the trainer, email, like, oh, we're going to have a great gig because Gene's going to be a professional. He's going to bring the knowledge to the lectures. He's going to deliver good content. He's going to, just like, I want people to be excited to work with me and to see me as a professional. And when I work with people that have more experience than me on seminars or have done more gigs, and there's always another layer deeper, and understanding that there's always more to learn. And, I can be confident in what I'm able to do and what I can bring to the team. But, Cameron Soden taught me real early this white belt mentality of, like, hey, you're a badass. You can be here and you can bring a lot to the team, but, like, what else can you learn? What's available for you to pick up and learn from? And there's always more. I think, like, we say it all the time, like, you learn something in every seminar, and you do, whether it's like a difficult interaction with someone or watching someone else relate to someone in a new way or in a deeper way, and go like, oh man, I want to be able to make that kind of connection with people and trying different skills out and trying to grow I think there's lots of different ways to grow,
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've actually had an interesting path recently, as your mentor, I know, but it's been like you have the soft skill or the hard skills down pat in terms of, like, the quality and information. And, like, what you talk about, every AAR is like, love working with Gene, consummate professional, blah, blah, blah. But then there's certain boxes that, depending on who you're working with, that you're required to fit in. It's like, this person specifically, as a flow master, as a mentor, is gonna be looking closer at this, even if you yourself think it's less important to the overall whatever's happening. You kind of have to shove that to the side and be like, okay, well, can I fit into this box so that when we walk away from this, even though I don't think this is quite right, like, can I continue to move forward in this process? And I connect with that a lot, because that was a huge part for me of being like, what I'm doing is really good, and I get more positive feedback than anyone. Like, I look at like, my name's mentioned by everyone, but I'm still getting shit on. Why am I still getting shit on? Like, this is so frustrating. Like, it was, and this, the growth is in such a different place of, it's not learning the hard skills or memorizing the lecture for you. It's more like, okay, well, what does this person need? How can I give this person who's managing this experience like that? And then the next step will be like, how can I give them that while still being Gene, while still being you? And so like, there's so many layers to this that no matter where we go, like there's always another thing to be like, well, here's how I can refine X, Y, or Z. So we're in such a fortunate place to have people around us who support.
In just onboarding that kind of feedback, like our whole role is built around getting and giving feedback nonstop. And I'll tell you right now, Pat, the same thing as you said. It's like I don't do anything like willy nilly where I'm just like, oh, I wonder how this will work out. Like I'm deliberate in most everything that I do. And I'll tell you right now, as soon as I get feedback, my initial reaction is like, well, that's not right. Like I didn't do it like that, or I didn't mean to do it like to this day, as much as I want feedback and I know how valuable it is, that is my initial reaction. I read the thing and I'm like, no, that's not right. No way that's right. I didn't mean to do it like that. I'm intentional in this. And then it's like, you've got to be willing to be like, all right, let me take a step back. All right, let me think about this for a second and realize that whatever that is, that's that person's truth or that's their perspective. And how can I learn from that?
Yeah.
What can I get from this thing? No matter what, no matter how well I think I'm doing with this, can I take it, learn from it, and be better for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey, right? It's a hard thing to do. Like feedback, no matter what, no matter how much you've done it and taken it and given it and received it, it's not easy.
Well, I think
that's like.
Go ahead, Gene.
I was going to say it's like a blessing and a curse because that constant feedback makes you better and you can learn from it. And some things you can take and just smile and nod and forget it, and learning what those things are that you can leave. But the constant pressure is difficult to manage too. It's like if every day at the end of your day, your boss was like, here's some things you did well. Here's some things that you can do better tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Every single day. It's like, brace yourself but you do get better.
Yeah.
But there's that pressure. It's an interesting environment for sure.
Super interesting environment. What I find is hard is that well, not hard, but like the more capable you become, the deeper that feedback is. If you've got a good mentor. So like the more capable you are, it's not like, hey, you need to tell them to squat a little deeper in the squat. Like the more like cutting it is to your overall presence because you've been so particular about what you've done. And so if the feedback's good, it's got to be deeper. It's got to be like, hey, how you're currently interacting with the world here is not how you perceive it. And you're like, ugh, like that hurt. Like everything I do is about it being good. So it's almost like this again, like the better you get, the harsher that feedback feels. But it's wonderful. Like, I mean, letting go of ego is like the purpose of a lot of this. So if you can sooner, it makes it easier. And on that note, to round things up, if you could go back and like talk to original you, and like give them some advice for like something like a pitfall that you maybe had along the way, like what would you give to you in the beginning to maybe shorten your growth to here?
I think the thing that pops into my mind is kind of like what we started out saying of like giving people a little bit more grace and having more of a long-term view of how their development was going to be and being a little bit more excited for smaller steps on the journey. I think I could have probably kept some people around in the early days that maybe I was too much of a hard ass on things and just being excited for their small steps along the way and knowing that like, hey, it's going to be okay. And it's just exercise. You know what I mean? Like there's standards for sure. And I uphold those standards with love. But also it's just a workout. You know what I mean? It's not life and death,
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Todd, do you have anything else?
Yeah. Nah, man. I think I'm sure that relates to both athletes and probably coaches that you've had throughout the journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, Gene. And where can people find you if they want to go train at your gym?
Foundry CrossFit, foundrycrossfit.com. We're in the Palm Springs area near Coachella Fest grounds. And if you like golf
Okay, let's go.
and if you have blue hair, you probably know where Palm Springs is. Your great grandparents probably live out here. And
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Well, when they make the 3 wave pools there, you'll see me there quite often. I'll come
that'll be
drop in.
that'll be fun.
Hell yeah. Thank you, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Good to talk to you guys.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Behind the Knowledge. Now, if you want help developing your coaching and to learn from us directly, check out the Knowledge Pro. There we host live calls with our coaches every week where we discuss content together and work on skills to improve our on-the-floor coaching ability. To learn more, you can head over to besthouroftheirday.com/the-knowledge. And if you found this content helpful, we're going to be releasing new episodes every week, so subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.